You guys know Stephen Yates. You can find him on Twitter at YatesComms. And he, of course, is Senior Fellow at America First Policy Institute and Chair of the China Policy Initiative. I mean, does it matter at this point? I mean, we don't like Iran. We're not getting along with them. We know that. We know that there's a relationship there. I think it's just petty squabbling at this point. No one's trying to rush headfirst into fisticuffs with Iran. But, I mean, I just think it's silly semantics at this point.
It's also not classified information.
Thank you.
I mean, it's been barfed all over news pages all over the world, and it's been uttered by the ever barf-giving leader of Iran. So I don't know why it's even considered a question. And yeah, it's kind of moot. But, if we had a commander-in-chief, why wouldn't he sort of kick some dirt up on their leg and say, I'm pretty sure they are involved and I'm pretty sure they better back off. But this kind of talk is what someone does when they're trying to set up some kind of a compromise, some kind of a diplomatic ceasefire. And so this just sounds like a diplomatic crap sandwich coming to your lunch table any day soon.
Yeah, there you go. I saw audio. Well, saw video. The head of the quote unquote Palestinian Authority, which is, I guess, now West Bank leadership. And then the former Hamas guy who called for a Jihad Day on Friday. Why did they live in Qatar? Why did the Qatari allow them to live there? They don't even live in the hellscapes that they've created. Why do they get to just cash out and live in palaces in Qatar?
Well, there have been deals around the broader Middle East for people to get out of very bad places and people who are very bad to get out. And there, obviously Qatar has been known to have harbored many folks who were on the lists of ill repute and bank accounts of people on the lists of ill repute for a long time. And so those that were out of Afghanistan, those out of Iraq war, and lots of other international do-no-gooders. But this particular part of convening Iranians and Hamas leadership is pretty distasteful. And a lot of talk was coming over the weekend of whatever happened with the post 9/11 mindset. And there's some of it that I don't want to last forever. We shouldn't live in fear forever. And there's some elements of the Patriot Act that I think over time, I think people should find better ways to address some of these challenges. But there is a part of the 9/11, post 9/11 mindset that, when someone is actively supporting evil terrorists, rapists, murderers, terrorists, you're either with them or you're against them. You're either with us or against us. I mean, I don't thirst for conflict or war, but they're doing this stuff, and I want nothing to do with them.
Yeah, exactly. Talking with our friend Stephen Yates at YatesComms on Twitter. So we were talking over Iran. Their very good friends, China's foreign minister said over the weekend that Israel has just gone too far responding to Hamas. That's according to their official commie news agency. He spoke to the Saudi Arabian foreign minister and the Chinese foreign minister, Wang Yi, said that Israel's actions have extended, Stephen, beyond self-defense, which I don't think anyone asked them.
Yeah, well, I'm fascinated to know what the Communist Party of China's standard is for how many civilian deaths are too many. How many political prisoners are too many? Exactly at what point have you exceeded your self-defense needs by, say, harassing 23 million people in Taiwan or sending a balloon over America? I mean, these new standards that the top commies have are genuinely fascinating to me. But this sort of fence riding, again, I just don't think we should be putting up with people fence riding on is Israel in the right to shellac the places where the people who engaged in this hellish behavior are hiding behind different facilities. I mean, this is within their sovereign territory. And there's one principle that the Chinese leadership supposedly has upheld, and that's kind of the immutability, the unchanging nature of sovereignty. This is within Israel's sovereignty to deal with this. So I don't really quite understand what the Chinese are trying to get at here. I say somewhat mockingly because people don't understand sarcasm on radio sometimes.
Yeah, no, I know. You always have to explain for the drive-bys, sadly. The how does this? Because I just see all of the. I don't want to break because we used the Axis powers back during the World War II era. But I mean, really, it's like you have China, you have Iran, Russia. You kind of have the people who are behind doing everything that they can to try to target the petrodollar. How does it benefit China if how this turns out? Because I just keep thinking that Israel being successful in defending its sovereignty cannot work out well for China, who I think probably does best when there's destabilization in this area.
Well, I guess it depends on whether you really believe the notion that China's leaders are engaged in marathon thinking, whereas we're dealing in short-term thinking. And I have a lot of friends who take both sides of that kind of a debate. It's fun academics, but right now, I think Xi Jinping is more of a short-term thinker, not a long-term thinker. Maybe because his days are not unlimited. He's facing a lot of different troubles. And so in the short term, an America depleted and distracted, a world distracted is an opening for him to move against Taiwan, to push against Japan, to hit his own people from time to time without anyone trying to say or do anything about it, for him to go ahead and run the rump Human Rights Council in the United Nations and have weird disposition or resolutions out there criticizing America and Israel more than, say, China. And so I think that they're engaged in more short-term calculus. They had a pretty sweet deal with Israel. Israel, in my estimation, had kind of gone further than I would have wanted in having security ties in manufacturing and other kinds of material. I don't think China's going to put up with this now that China's full-heartedly siding with kind of the Hamas Palestinian line at this point.
Yeah. Speaking of China, they're celebrating their 10 years of Belt and Road, the way that they can get their tentacles into developing countries, their crappy global infrastructure program. They're meeting Putin this week. They're actually going to. Is he meeting him in Beijing? Is he actually going to? Is old puffy face McShaky Leg going to go over to Beijing?
Yeah, frankly, I don't know where they're meeting, and it's kind of crazy that Putin needs some infrastructure support, because I heard he had a lot of black gold that he could be pulling out, and the sanctions have not really done very much to push back on that. And the fact that we have anti-oil, anti-fossil fuels policies and ideologies actually helps those guys. I mean, there was a group of people who seemed to get into high church about anything that was pro-Putin or pro-Russia or whatever else. There's nothing more pro-Putin and pro-Russia than the environmentalist cult. And so that's all this is. It's going to be swapping some beautiful black gold money for some probably no-show jobs for Chinese people to do something that will crumble in 10 years somewhere in the universe.
Yeah, I don't know how they can have a 10-year celebration of Belt and Road without actually doing inventory of how poorly what they do ages.
Good. Yeah, you're right. Right. I mean, if this was a belt, I mean, they'd be looking for a new hole to put into it to expand, because this is, they've been pouring money, and I don't think the returns have been great. And even in South Asian and African and some Latin American countries, there's a lot of buyer's remorse.
Yeah, so let me interrupt and ask you that, because there are still countries that are considering joining onto this. How can they consider this when you look at what they've done in other parts of the world? They get these mineral rights, they hang on to them for life, but in exchange they get, made in China level infrastructure.
Yeah, well, I am sure that you're not asking me why a temporary leader of a country would like to get super rich on a project for a time, even if said project is crap city in 5-10 years. If there's a stadium that crumbles and I'm long gone by then, that money still spends really great.
Yeah.
And so, unfortunately, I think that is the reality check that people are getting. Turns out Chinese communists are corrupt. A lot of these countries, sadly, are led by corrupt people. And while they want to kick the United States around, and we are full of problems, we can look left, right, everywhere and find problems. But on our worst days, we're more efficient and more clean and credible than all of these guys.
Yeah, completely. Our good friend Stephen Yates at YatesComs on Twitter. Always appreciate your insight. And hopefully we won't have anything to talk about next week. That'll be
Thank you,
boring.
Dana.
Hopefully we won't. Always good to see you. Thank you so
You
much.
got it. Take care.